So, when I was a kid, I had these very progressive filmmaker parents, and they let us watch all sorts of movies that we probably shouldn't have when we were little. Some of them had quite an effect on me. There was one made-for-TV movie called Adam. Does anybody remember this? Yeah. So Adam was about a little boy who gets abducted, it's a true story, who gets abducted from a shopping mall, and they find him in little pieces. And this sort of started all the kidnapping craze of the 80s craze that came out weird. But I remember after watching the movie, my mom was like, Drew, if you don't get home before dark, there's a good chance somebody's going to abduct you and chop you into little pieces. She's great. She's a great mom. The other movie, the one that had the biggest effect on me was Jaws, which I saw when I was 7. And when I saw that little boy in the movie on the rubber raft just turn into this fountain of gore, like I knew I was gonna get eaten by a shark. I didn't need anybody to tell me. I knew I was gonna meet my end by being chewed to death by something hideous with gills. So I was afraid of the ocean, and being afraid of the ocean isn't easy when your parents are avid sailors. You have a brother who's a sea captain and a scuba instructor, a sister who teaches marine biology and builds submersible robots for fun. It's an irrational fear, but irrational fear is the force that binds my atoms together. But you can't. When you grow up, you can't. Hold on to these fears and still call yourself a man, I think. So I decided every year I was going to take a trip and confront one of these fears, which is how 11 years ago. I found myself buying a ticket to Cape Town, South Africa. Because if you've ever seen the Air Jaws documentary on Shark Week, you'll know that in Cape Town, South Africa, a great white shark can fly. Well, they jump out of the water, So in the panicky weeks building up to this trip, I start frantically Googling shark statistics, how many people every year are killed by a great white shark, And the answer is one. One person a year is killed by a great white shark. And I was like, okay, well, it's May. Has it happened yet? I was when I was a kid, I was always told what do what to do when a shark comes at you? You punch it in the nose. But it turns out that's not true. That just pisses them off. So what you're supposed to do if you're in the mouth of a great white shark is just try to gouge at their eyes with your really, So I just decided that if I was ever attacked by a great white shark, I would just soil myself with such volume it would just spit me out. And swim off in search of less pathetic prey, So I fly to South Africa, and I book a trip on the same boat from the Air Jaws documentary. And the reason I did this is because the Air Jaws boat had devised this method to get the great white sharks to breach out of the water, and they do it by towing a foam rubber seal behind the boat. Now, the reason why in Cape Town, South Africa, specifically, the great white sharks jump out of the water is because in the middle of the bay in Cape Town, there's this island with the very creative name of Seal Island, because there's thousands of seals on this island. And what the great white sharks will do is they will, a seal can outmaneuver a great white shark. So the great white sharks will go to the deepest depths of the bay, and they will wait for a herd of seals to go to swim above them, and they'll wait for a straggler seal at the back of the herd, and then they'll just launch themselves with such velocity towards that seal that their whole bodies leave the water. And if you've ever seen this on the Air Jaws documentary, it's the same footage every time. You see super slow motion of the seal just darting for its dear life out of the water in slow motion, and you hear this drum beat boom, 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 and the seal is just sort of going boom, 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 and then you see this mouth filled with teeth broken glass coming up behind it out of the water, and your heart starts going boom, 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 boom. and this shark's body just sort of raises out of the water, and its tail whips around, and you see this look on this seal's face like, no, as 2.5 tons of great white shark just bear down on it with its teeth, And I saw this with my own eyes standing on the deck of the Air Jaws boat at sunrise, and it looked like this. Bloop. I was like, have a second. But so we saw it one time, and we didn't see it for a while. So the captain of the boat just throttles down the engine to this low growl, and then the deckhands they bring this giant cooler of chum into the boat, and they just start whipping it out into the water, and then they take this big tuna head out of the cooler, and they pluck its eyes out with a knife, and they thread this rope through the eye sockets and throw it out into the water. And it isn't long before the first dorsal fin appears circling the boat. And there, in the water, around me, is Jaws. And then another dorsal fin appears. It's Jaws 2. And the captain says, you're lucky. I don't do a South African accent. South Africa. I can't do it, so I just do pirate. And he's like, yeah, lucky. He said, we've been out here for months and we haven't had any sharks coming up to the boat. And I said, in my head, I think, it's because they know I'm here. And they start lowering the shark cage to the into the water, and they latch it to the side of the boat, and people start getting into it. And I just start shaking. I find the exact center of the boat, and I can't move, and I can hardly breathe. And the captain comes over to me, and he says, "Are you all right, mate?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, what's the matter?" And I said, "I don't know if you noticed, but there's 2 fucking great white sharks circling it. There's 15-foot great white sharks circling the boat." And he puts his hand on my shoulder, and he points into the water, and he says, "That? You're scared of that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Mate, that's just Tim." And he points to the other one, and he says, "That there? That's just Sally." And he just gives the sharks names. That's all he does. And suddenly, all the fear that was in me just sort of drains out of my toes at once, And I take a breath, and I step over the edge of the boat and into the shark cage. And for a moment, it's just noise and bubbles and this red cloud of chum, and I'm fighting with my mask to get it to fit. And then I finally can see in front of me. And then Tim the shark blasts by the cage like a subway car. He looks so big, like I could stand up inside of him, And I look down at the ocean floor, and there's this dark spot on the ocean floor that keeps getting larger and larger and larger as the mouth out of my nightmares starts creeping towards me, as Sally the shark just slowly drifts past the cage and just starts to nibble at the tuna head. And it's so peaceful, and it's so beautiful. And it's honestly the most extraordinary thing I've ever seen in my life. And I wasn't scared at all. Now that evening, I happened to have a friend who was in Cape Town at the same time as me, and we made an appointment to have dinner down at the waterfront. So I decided to take a walk. It was about a half-mile walk, and it's at sunset, real pretty. And I'm walking, towards the waterfront, and And this homeless guy starts walking next to me, and he goes, hey mate, can I have some money? And sorry, it's a pirate. And I say, I only had big bills on me, so I was like, I'm sorry, I don't have any money. And but he's really pissed. He's like, hey, can I have some money? And I'm like, dude, no, I don't have any money. And he just keeps walking next to me, and I'm like, dude, I don't have any money. And then we turn this corner, and we're the only people on this street, and he gives me this shove, and he says, don't do anything fucking stupid. And he motions down, and he's holding a shiv, like a spike, like a filed down piece of metal. And this guy's 10 years younger than me and more athletic, and I'm not Chuck Norris. So the only thing I could think to do was say, fuck you, you piece of shit. I gave him my money. I'm not an idiot. But the only thing I felt I could do was just curse this guy. I'm like, I hope you die. I hope you drown in a puddle of shit. And he holds the shiv up to my chest. And he says to me, give me your keys. And I said, fuck off! And he does. He leaves. And I'm standing there on the corner shaking, and I'm feeling so many things at once. I have so much adrenaline coursing through me. And I'm feeling so many things at once, but it hits me, the one thing that I wasn't feeling, the one thing that I didn't feel throughout this entire ordeal was fear. Because that man who had just threatened to kill me, that was just Tim. That was just Sally. Thank you.